Hey guys, let's talk. Today I want to dive into a topic that often goes unspoken, yet it impacts us all deeply. It's something that shapes our lives, our interactions, and even our sense of self. It's about the invisible cage we often find ourselves in. Let's talk about something important. This isn't just a casual conversation, it's a crucial one. It's about the societal expectations placed upon us as men. Expectations that can sometimes feel like a heavy burden, a weight that we carry around without even realizing it. Something that affects all of us, whether we realize it or not. These expectations are ingrained in us from a young age. We're taught to be strong, to be providers, to never show weakness. But what happens when these expectations become too much to bear? It's about the expectations we carry as men, the expectations that can sometimes feel like a cage. This cage confines us, limits our emotional expression, and forces us into roles that may not align with who we truly are. It's a silent struggle, one that many of us face alone. We put on a brave face, suppress our emotions, and try to fit into a mold that doesn't always feel right. We hide our vulnerabilities, fearing judgment or ridicule. But in doing so, we lose a part of ourselves. We become disconnected from our true feelings and desires. That, my friends, is the trap of toxic masculinity. I've been there. I've felt the pressure to conform, to be someone I'm not. It's a lonely place, filled with self-doubt and confusion. But recognizing this trap is the first step towards breaking free. I know what it feels like to be boxed in by these expectations, to feel like you're constantly performing, never truly living. It's exhausting, and it takes a toll on our mental and emotional well-being. But it doesn't have to be this way. It's not about blaming anyone. It's about understanding how these harmful norms can hold us back from living our best lives. It's about recognizing the impact they have on our relationships, our happiness, and our sense of self-worth. It's about understanding how these harmful norms can hold us back from living our best lives. When we start to see the cage for what it is, we can begin to dismantle it. We can start to redefine what it means to be a man on our own terms. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be this way. We have the power to change. We can choose to break free from these constraints, to live authentically and fully. It's a journey, and it won't happen overnight, but it's a journey worth taking. We have the power to break free, to redefine masculinity on our own terms. We can create a new narrative, one that embraces vulnerability, compassion, and authenticity. It's about being true to ourselves and supporting each other in this journey. It's a journey for sure, but one worth taking. It's about finding our true selves, beyond the societal expectations and norms. It's about living a life that's true to who we are, not who we're told to be. Trust me, the rewards are immense. When we break free from the cage, we find a sense of freedom and fulfillment that we never thought possible. We build deeper connections, live more authentically, and ultimately find true happiness. So let's take this journey together and redefine what it means to be a man. So, what exactly is toxic masculinity? It's not about saying that being masculine is inherently bad, not at all. It's about recognizing the harmful aspects of masculinity that society often glorifies. Things like suppressing emotions, valuing dominance over empathy, and equating vulnerability with weakness. Healthy masculinity, on the other hand, is about embracing the full spectrum of human experience. It's about strength and courage, yes, but also about compassion, empathy, and the willingness to be vulnerable. It's about being comfortable in your own skin, regardless of societal expectations. Think of it like this. We all have a masculine side and a feminine side. True strength comes from finding a balance between the two. It's about being a whole person, not just a caricature of what society tells us a man should be. Here's the thing about suppressing our emotions. It takes a toll. It affects our mental health, our physical health, and our relationships. Bottling things up might seem like the manly thing to do, but it only leads to stress, anxiety, and even depression. And it's not just us who suffer. When we don't deal with our emotions in a healthy way, it can spill over into our interactions with others. We might become more irritable, quick to anger, or even withdrawn. The truth is, guys, we're not superheroes. We're human beings with real feelings, and it's okay to not be okay all the time. In fact, acknowledging our vulnerabilities is a sign of strength, not weakness. Childhood memories. seeds of doubt. I remember being a kid and hearing phrases like, "Boys don't cry" or "Man up." These words were often said with good intentions, meant to encourage resilience and strength. But as a child, I didn't fully understand the weight they carried. They were just words, after all, spoken by adults who seemed to know everything. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I was too busy enjoying the simple pleasures of childhood, riding my bicycle down the street, playing ball with friends, and daydreaming about fantastical adventures. Life was uncomplicated, or so it seemed. But looking back, I realize how those seemingly harmless words planted seeds of doubt in my mind. They were like tiny pebbles thrown into a pond, creating ripples that would eventually grow into waves. These words made me question my own emotions and taught me to suppress them instead of expressing them. They made me question my own emotions and taught me to suppress them instead of expressing them. I began to internalize the idea that showing any form of vulnerability was a sign of weakness. This belief started to shape my interactions with others and my understanding of myself. I remember one time, I was about 8 years old and I scraped my knee pretty badly. It was one of those injuries that seemed catastrophic to a child, but was probably just a minor scrape in the grand scheme of things. The pain was sharp and immediate and I couldn't help but cry. It really hurt, and I started to cry. Tears streamed down my face, and I felt a mix of pain and embarrassment. Crying felt natural, a way to release the hurt I was feeling, but then my dad approached me. My dad, who I love dearly, put his arm around me and said, "Come on now, son. Be tough. Tough guys don't cry." His words were meant to comfort me, to make me feel stronger. But instead, they made me feel like my tears were something to be ashamed of. I wanted to be tough, so I choked back my tears. I wiped my face and tried to put on a brave front. I didn't want to disappoint my dad or seem weak in his eyes. But deep down, I felt a knot of confusion and shame. But deep down, I felt ashamed for crying. I started to believe that my emotions were something to hide, something that made me less of a person. This belief began to take root, affecting how I saw myself and how I interacted with the world around me. I learned that showing vulnerability was not okay, especially for boys. This lesson was reinforced by the world around me, through media, through peers, and even through well-meaning adults. Vulnerability was equated with weakness, and strength was equated with emotional stoicism. And that belief, unfortunately, stayed with me for years to come. It influenced my relationships, my self-esteem, and my ability to connect with others on a deeper level. It took a long time to unlearn those lessons and to understand that true strength lies in embracing our emotions, not in hiding them. The unrealistic expectations of media and society. It's not just our upbringing that shapes our ideas about masculinity. The media plays a huge role too. We're bombarded with images of men as stoic heroes, action stars, and athletes who never show weakness. And while there's nothing wrong with admiring strength and athleticism, these portrayals can create unrealistic expectations for what it means to be a man. The same goes for social media. We see carefully curated versions of people's lives, often portraying an idealized version of masculinity that's simply not attainable. It's easy to get caught up in the comparison game and feel like we're not measuring up. But here's the thing, none of it's real. It's all a facade. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner we can start focusing on what truly matters, being comfortable in our own skin. Redefining strength. Vulnerability is not weakness. One of the biggest misconceptions about masculinity is that vulnerability is a weakness. Society often teaches us that to be strong, we must hide our emotions, put on a brave face, and never show any sign of what might be perceived as fragility. This notion is deeply ingrained in many cultures, where the image of a stoic, unyielding figure is often glorified. But this couldn't be further from the truth. But the truth is, vulnerability is a superpower. It is the ability to be open and honest about our feelings, to share our fears and doubts, and to connect with others on a deeper level. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open the door to genuine human connection. We create space for empathy, understanding, and mutual support. This is where true strength lies. It takes courage to be vulnerable, to let down our guard and show our true selves to the world. In a world that often values appearances over authenticity, being vulnerable can feel like a radical act. It requires us to confront our fears of judgment and rejection, and to embrace our imperfections. But in doing so, we find a profound sense of freedom and self-acceptance. Think about the people you admire most in your life. Are they the ones who always seem perfect, who never show any sign of struggle or doubt? Or are they the ones who are willing to be real, who share their challenges and triumphs with honesty and grace? Chances are, they're the ones who are comfortable being themselves, flaws and all. Chances are they're not the ones who put on a tough act all the time. They're the ones who are comfortable being themselves, flaws and all. They are the ones who inspire us with their authenticity, who make us feel seen and understood. They remind us that it's okay to be human, to have moments of weakness and vulnerability. They're the ones who are comfortable being themselves, flaws and all. They show us that true strength is not about being invincible, but about being real. It's about having the courage to face our fears, to ask for help when we need it, and to show our emotions authentically. This kind of strength is not only admirable, but it is also deeply empowering. They're the ones who are brave enough to be vulnerable, to ask for help when they need it, and to show their emotions authentically. That's real strength. It's the strength to be honest about our struggles, to seek support from others, and to build meaningful connections based on trust and mutual respect. This kind of strength creates a ripple effect, encouraging others to do the same. The strength to be vulnerable, to connect with others on a deeper level, and to build meaningful relationships. This is the foundation of a fulfilling and authentic life. When we embrace vulnerability, we open ourselves up to deeper connections, greater empathy, and a more profound sense of belonging. We create a space where others feel safe to be themselves and where genuine relationships can flourish. It's the strength to be comfortable in your own skin, even when it's scary. It's about embracing our true selves with all our imperfections and insecurities. It's about recognizing that our worth is not determined by our ability to hide our vulnerabilities, but by our willingness to embrace them. This kind of strength is transformative, both for ourselves and for those around us. And it's a strength that we can all cultivate. By practicing vulnerability, we can build deeper connections, foster greater empathy, and create a more compassionate world. It's a journey that requires courage, but it's one that leads to a richer, more meaningful life. So let's redefine what it means to be strong. Let's embrace vulnerability as a source of strength and inspire others to do the same.